Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for tuning in. I am joined by Joel today. Joel, thanks for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be on.
Joel is principal developer at thoughtbot and co-host of the Bike Shed podcast. And I am an avid listener to the Bike Shed podcast. If folks want to listen to the podcast and they don't already, bikeshed.fm is the website.
Or _bikeshed on X, Twitter.
Don't even. Sure. Yes. Wonderful. So we are picking back up what we worked on yesterday. And that was this page in our internal application that we have called Hub, which is a monolithic Rails application that connects to a lot of different services that we use at thoughtbot and also provides things that we use internally. It has a lot of different things like messages and handbook and events. Let me share my screen. And you'll be able to see messages and events, hiring functionality, finances, and we manage our schedule, consulting schedule, which reminds me, if you need a new application built, web or mobile, going from scratch or improving something, you can always get in touch with us at thoughtbot.com. It's the red Hire Us button up in the top right corner. So we have an internal ticketing system that we use for getting help and support around our computers, internal systems, that kind of thing. That's what we are working on yesterday and today. This previously was some just drop downs to do basic filtering based on created by, assigned to, and status of a ticket. This header up here wasn't there yesterday. And so what we did yesterday was we replaced those static filter dropdowns and the hard-coded active record queries that were being done in a controller with a gem called Filterific. And the dropdowns changed from being only able to filter by one person to being able to filter by any number of people, any number of assigned to. Right now, it's just active and done, but we're going to eventually change that to be able to filter by any status as well.
I'm not familiar with the Filterific gem.
It's an old gem. It's been around for a really long time. It's probably, I don't know the answer to like, would I use it today? But we use it all throughout the application and have for a while. And so, and it does what it needs to do. It's stable. It's not bad. And there aren't a lot of bugs. And so we've just continued to move forward with it. I don't know. I asked in the chat yesterday whether anyone had any alternatives, and no one had any primary alternatives. I think the decision when it comes to, so Filterific provides both sort of a helpers and DSL for running queries or setting up a filter object that has methods for scopes running queries, and helpers for drawing the forms, and then also helpers for adding sortable columns and a way to do sorting. And so a lot of people would do like sorting client side if they had a table and wanted to do column sorting, but that's separate from filtering. So assuming you're going to do server side sorting, filtering, that kind of thing, Filterific's a pretty good option, particularly because, as you'll see, this page uses Hotwire and Turbo, and the experience is pretty dynamic because of that. It's not doing full page refreshes. So we can, right now this page is doing sort of full page refreshes, but you can see, it's pretty quick and dynamic. the form is automatically being submitted remotely anytime it changes.
So we're trying to get the best of both worlds here.
I think so. And, I generally prefer the Hotwire Turbo approach of doing things on the server side with a sprinkle of JavaScript.
Did you ever use the jQuery data tables plugin back in the day?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's been a long time. It's been a long time since I used jQuery. What about you?
Yes. In fact, I actually maintained an open source gem for a while that was a Rails integration with the jQuery data tables.
Awesome.
I've not used that in a very long time, and I handed it off the gem to someone else who cared about it a little bit more.
Yeah. So you've never used Filterific, is that right?
I have not.
Okay, so let's dive into the code then, and I'll show you a little bit about Filterific and how it's set up, and then we'll add the sortable columns. So we have our ticket spec here. This is a feature level spec. We didn't change it much yesterday. What we mostly did was keep the functionality the same as we changed it and added tests at the model level for the changes that we were pushing out of the controller down into the model. We did need to make some changes, but the way that so we store the filters in app models filters, and it's a module that's included in the model. And so, but there's a filterific sort of helper, I guess, for lack of a method that sets up. So you say like, here are my available filters. You can name them anything with status, with created by, and with assigned to. And then you can say what the default parameters are for those filters. And then you define active record scopes or any methods that match the names of those available filters. So what this does is it basically makes a filter object that has functionality for accepting params and knowing how to call these scopes based on the params that are set or aren't set. And
is the expectation that these scopes should be composable?
Yes, it is the expectation that they should be, that they should be able to be chained. If you mess that up, you're going to get an error. You'll notice, like, oftentimes you don't realize that like maybe a join has messed up another scope, and it's not until you filter on all of those things that it ends up throwing an error. And that's a good point too, because I don't know about you, but when I write specs for a bunch of scopes, I typically don't unless there's a specific reason. My model specs tend to be pretty focused on just the scope and its behavior, and not necessarily how they chain successfully with other things, until there's a bug, and then I'll write a spec to test the bug.
I'm similar, although I could definitely see when you're using them in some kind of filter bar like we have today, having some sort of combo spec that tests all of the scopes that are included in that filter bar, because it is quite likely that they will all be used in concert.
Yeah, and that's what this spec is doing. This feature spec is filtering, building up, saying like, I'm going to set these things, and then I'm going to filter. I should see this. Then I'm going to change the status to done, and I should only see that thing. And it goes through and exercises all the filters. But I find that even in that scenario, I've had times where I thought I was exercising all the filters together, but it wasn't until we got to the real data that turns out a join was missing or something like that. Cool. So that's the basic setup for Filterific. Then in the controller, the way that you do it is there's a controller level helper method called initialize Filterific, and you give it a scope. You can also override or augment the default filters. And this is where you do dynamic things for the filters. So for example, in our thing, we have, if the person is on the support team, then show them tickets for everybody. But if the person's not on the support team, then show them their tickets when they come to this page. And that doesn't happen at the model level because it doesn't have the user. So it's happening in the controller. So that's where those defaults are set. And it's sort of overriding the normal defaults. So you give this initialize Filterific method scope and the filter parameters, which are basically the filter object that the form object that Filterific expects. And ticket scope is, it could be up here, but we've extracted it into a method. It's just the ticket with a bunch of includes to avoid the n+1 queries. And then we have, right now we're ordering this ordered scope, just orders by created on ascending or due date ascending. But this is part of what we're going to change. We're going to remove that ordered, and we're going to make it so that you can order by columns.
And I could imagine that if this system were limiting what tickets you could see based on your user, you might want that initial scope that gets filtered to be already pre-filtered down based on your permissions.
Yeah. In fact, this application, it's an internal application, and at thoughtbot, pretty much everyone has access to everything. So there aren't a ton of permissions, but you could do it the same. There is at least one place in the application where, we have contractors working or something and we don't want them to see something. So that is where it scopes it down based on the user type that they are. So yeah, exactly.
I could easily imagine passing in like a pundit scope or something like that in this space.
Yeah, exactly. So then in the form, basically it's a fairly standard form. We're exposing the filter object as a instance variable, and with simple form 4, you can call that as a symbol, and it'll look for an instance variable with that symbol. The reason why we do that is, instead of just the instance variable there, is if you give simple form an instance I don't know if you know this, but if you give simple form an instance variable, it will assume you're giving it an active record model, and it will enforce that the things you have provided here are attributes. But if you give it a symbol, then you can build a form that isn't enforced that it matches attributes. And then if your symbol happens to map to an active record, to a instance variable, to match the name out of an instance variable, it will pull the values from that instance variable, but it won't enforce that it's an active record model. It's a subtle thing about simple form. It's powerful, but I don't know how anyone would ever know that. It's very hidden functionality.
Is this a private API?
It's not private. It's documented in the document,
okay.
Like in the documentation for simple form. It's just really subtle. But that's what we're doing. So we basically have form inputs that match the names of the filters that we have. And so Filterific is going to say, oh, something is set for that parameter. It's going to build the filter object, and it's going to run the queries.
And I see here we're setting a controller and action.
Yeah, so this is stimulus. stuff to auto submit the form anytime anything changes. It's an auto submit controller. It's a pretty simple, focused, auto size, auto submit. It's a pretty focused behavior where it's just saying, hide when the controller is connected, hide the submit button on the form. And then anytime the form changes, request a submit for it. Or anytime we receive the send event, we're wiring up the change event to the send. So anytime the form changes, it'll submit. There's some extra stuff here about if this is not a turbo form, do things a little bit differently, I guess is what this is saying.
Nice.
So otherwise, it's a pretty standard form where we just have our form input and we're giving it a list of people. You can select multiple. It's not required, and we're including the blank, which equals all. Cool.
So in terms of the behavior we're trying to add today, is that something that is going to be visible from like a feature spec perspective?
I think so, yeah, because what we can do is click on, what we're going to be able to do is click on the, here, let's go to a page that has, so this people page has the filters in a sidebar, but it is using filterific. And so you can see right now, this is just the default sorting. But we'll be able to click on a column title and sort the, that's interesting. And sort the fields by that. So we should be able to write a feature spec about that. So our page has a title. To be honest, I probably wouldn't write a feature spec to be able to sort on every column, which is probably why we have this bug here. But we probably should think about how we're going to do that. There should be, the way I would generally approach it is write a feature spec that like sorts on a column to show that, hey, we've got this functionality in place. But then I would write a model spec for the actual sorting scope. And then there I would exercise everything that I expected. So we shouldn't have a bug like that, but looks like we do. Okay, so let's so how about we write it for the title? Does that sound good?
Yes.
Would that be your approach too? Is like feature spec to just show that the functionality is there and basically works, and then go down and do all the sorting for all the columns we expect at the model level?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Feature specs are generally expensive. I mostly use them to show that a behavior is there without maybe testing every instance of it.
Yeah. So let's add a scenario for sorting. So we're going to need to set up some tickets here.
Is that Copilot?
It is. So yeah, we have to pay a careful attention and make sure that if we're using that, it actually makes sense. It actually looks pretty good. So what is it doing? It's creating a person. It's getting the user, which is necessary to log in as that user. It's creating 3 tickets, ticket 1, ticket 2, ticket 3. And then it expects the page to have those things. Then it clicks on title and it expects, but that's not a valid spec because it's not actually testing the order of the.
It
have
Well,
content isn't going to check
Oh,
that
right.
the actual order is there.
Correct. It
Well, we
checks
can-
them in order, but does not check the
that they're
order.
that order. Yeah. So let's take that and then we'll just change this. So basically, we need to get the tickets titles from the page,
And then do the check in Ruby.
and then do the check in Ruby. So how do we? So there's nothing. So we're rendering a collection, which will be the ticket. So the ticket title is in row title class.
Okay.
So we can use that. I know some people would prefer like a test ID or something that's not a class in order to do that. How do you feel about that?
I, when possible, try to use things that could be conceivably used by someone who's actually interacting in the browser.
Mm-hmm.
I generally try to avoid leaning on things like classes and IDs because they're not visible.
Yeah.
So I might lean on something that's even some sort of like accessibility label, or maybe even here.
You could take the first TD.
That's what I'm thinking is the positional. Like I'm thinking, how would someone interact with this if they were looking at it in a browser?
Yeah, that
and
sounds
it would be,
good to me.
I would look at that first column and take the values.
That sounds good to me. So let's go back to our spec. I think it's find underscore all, right? And
that looks right.
And then we don't have anything signifying the table. I think it might be the only table on the page though. So let's just give that a try. First child, right? And that's going to give us all the nodes that match that. And then we need to get the text of that. Do you happen to, is it just text?
Yeah. I want to say it's text.
Okay. I don't want that. I don't know what it's doing with that tab. Okay. So in this case, I think we're going to, it's interesting. The default sort of our tickets is this right now is a little complicated. It's due on if it's set. Oh, that's overdue. Sorry, I was reading. I misread what method we were looking at. Yeah. So, okay. So it's not complicated. It's just ordered by due on ascending. So that means we need to set due on dates on these.
Does it matter? Do we care about testing the default sort order as part of this test?
That's a good question. Probably not.
I almost imagine we could do, yep, you show up on the page, you make no assumptions, you do a sort, you expect their ascending, hit the sort again, expect descending.
Oh no, contain exactly isn't going to do what we want there. So that should do it. So we're going to get a failure. It's not going to be able to click on the title. Yeah, unable to find linker button title. I was saying yesterday that we happen to be streaming now, but whenever I do test-driven development like this, I do exactly that. Like while the spec is running, I say to myself what I think is going to happen, and that helps. Like if that happens, great. but it creates this like immediate cognitive dissonance when it doesn't happen, where I'm like, oh, what I expected happened didn't happen. It helps me like focus in on the error and be like, what actually happened, and then quickly be able to fix it. I don't know if you're the same way.
I think generally, yes. There are some times where I am much more in an exploratory phase. I'm like, I don't really know what's going to happen, where it's going to fail. Maybe even like in an application where I'm like totally unfamiliar and I'm not exactly sure what steps go through. So maybe there's like a login I'm not aware of or something like that. But I guess I do build an idea of like, here's the thing I would expect to fail. And if it doesn't, then you look at why.
Yeah. So let's go over to the people index, because I know we can find an example of the helper to use for filtering the titles. Yeah. So it's filterific sorting link. You give it the filter object, which column you want to sort on. In this case, I don't know what that, to be honest, I don't know what that as filters is there and why it's necessary.
And filterific sorting link is a helper that the gem gives us.
I think, yes, I'm almost positive. We're doing it, but we're overriding the behavior. So it is a method that the gem gives us, but we are adding SVGs for the sorting indicators.
I see. I noticed that when you were demoing it earlier.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Or the other thing that's interesting is we are putting as filters there, so technically we don't need to specify it every time in the actual view. But I also still don't know what it does. I think it's probably, I actually don't know what it does. So this is going to give us a sorting link to sort by title. So
and by putting title here, that will also put the text inside the link.
Yeah. Right? Yes, because it's not being specified in here either.
Okay.
So let's run that spec again. And why not? We'll go over here and refresh the page and see that it has the link. Okay, so it attempted to sort and it got undefined method sorted by for the filterific param set, which is the object that filterific uses internally. So the way that you do sorting in the filterific filters is it expects a sorted by method. I was showing that yesterday. We'll go over to the the person filter, so we can see what one looks like. So it's a sorted by. It defaults. You can override which scope it's using to sort, but it defaults to one that's called sorted by. And then you define a query. The way that the filterific makes the format for a parameter that for doing scoping, sorting. You can see it if we, actually it's going to be super small on the stream, but this link is, it's the name of the attribute that you want to sort by, underscore, and then the direction you want to sort in.
Okay.
And so that's what's happening here is it's pulling out the direction and making sure that it's one of either, or setting it to one of either descending or ascending. If it's not set, it goes to ascending. This is in the filterific documentation. They give an example of this. So we're just following the pattern provided by filterific. And then what you do is you basically say you create a case statement for each of the columns you want to be able to sort on, and you tell it how to do that. So you can see you can do any active record query here. We're just inside of a scope. So if you wanted to do other things while you're sorting, you can. It's just a method with a scope. And then raise an error if it's not one of the known sorting things.
That's pretty straightforward. Do you
Yeah.
want to maybe copy some of that over to the other one?
That sounds good to me. I was saying yesterday how I'm very comfortable copying and pasting code. The only thing is that I want to check. I do want to write specs for this. I don't think we've been super judicious about writing specs for the sorted by method, which is probably part of the reason why that department filtering by sorting by department happens. So I don't want to copy the implementation code without making sure we have a spec first for it.
I like that.
Let's just check if there is a spec, name, title, team, start date. Yeah, there's no spec for department. So we'll fix that later. That's a tomorrow or a next week problem. But so let's go over.
It's funny how that happens, right? The one thing you didn't test is the one that breaks.
Of course, that is how it's going to be.
The tests keep you honest.
Yeah. So here is our unit test for the filter. It's mixed into the model, so these specs actually call the scopes on the model.
That makes sense.
And so we can start one at the bottom.
Is it? Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So it's got this wrong. This is going to need to be sorted by title ascending. Yeah. But saved us a lot of typing. This looks right to me. Yep, undefined method sorted by. So now we'll go over to here and just copy this to get the infrastructure set up. So we need to add sorted by up here to make it available in that object. Okay, look good?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So actually now our feature spec should pass too, I think.
I'd like to go back to the unit test,
Yeah.
the model spec, and add a test for the other direction.
Oh, good call.
It can be as part of the same test. Just adding maybe another results sorted by title descending.
Yeah, good call. So now it would be 3, 2, 1. What happened? I think it had something else in the terminal. Cool.
Okay.
Feel good about that then?
I did not see this fail. I'm curious. We know it works ascending.
Yeah.
If we hard code ascending as the direction, here, instead of
Yeah.
passing it in, I would expect our spec to fail. Or to pass the first one and fail at the second one.
Yeah, it failed at the second one.
Perfect.
Cool.
So we know that that works.
Great.
And then do we want to test this branch here for the error?
Yeah, good call. Let's see what it does. Is that what it throws? Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about prefixing with title so that it looks like a realistic thing? So instead of even invalid here, maybe it's even like title descending, but there's a typo in there. So maybe title underscore DSC or something like that.
That's interesting because that's not going to fail.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you look at the implementation, if it doesn't it's going to split. It's only going to look at the beginning of the string.
Okay.
And if it doesn't find a valid sort direction, it's going to default to ascending.
Ah, so it's not failing for an invalid sort direction. It's failing for an invalid
column.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we wrote this test then, because I didn't understand the implementation correctly.
So we need to
so it doesn't exist or something like that. Yes. I like that. Cool.
We never saw it fail though, so yep.
That is the one disadvantage of copy paste,
yes.
or maybe even some Copilot implementations, is that it doesn't quite give you that minimal TDD flow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so let's see if that feature spec passes now. Awesome.
Excellent. Did we sort both ways?
We did not yet, and not in the spec. So in theory, clicking on the title again should reverse the order. That did the right thing without even saying that we wanted to write the reverse order. Just knew.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, it passed. I don't know how we would have written a failing spec at the feature level for that. I guess we could change the implementation to always do that again. Yeah.
There it is.
Okay, so now let's
style wise, how do you feel about bundling these two lines together and these two lines together? I guess like remove the white space here and here.
So I always prefer a blank line between the three steps of the spec. So setup, exercise, and assert. And then when we have a spec that is more of either of those, I put blank lines.
Okay.
But I'm not hard and fast about that.
Yeah, I guess it's mostly like realizing that it has two act and assert clusters.
Yeah,
trying to make that a little bit clearer.
I'm comfortable with that too.
Cool.
Let's commit this. We've got a branch going with all this functionality. add sorting by title to tickets index. Yeah, these are just going to be squashed, so we're mostly just saving our work.
You mean you don't write a beautiful multi-paragraph commit message for every commit?
No. I will go back, when I actually put together the final pull request, I'll do it. But this basically adds a bullet point list of the things I want to cover in that, or might cover in that. What about you?
I tend to do the same, especially for kind of work in progress commits. If it's something where I know it's going to be kind of its own standalone thing, so let's say I did a refactor to set up some future work, I will try to write a description there.
Mm-hmm.
But for more kind of steps in a longer process, a line like what we did is what I would do.
Okay, so now I think we want to add the ability to sort by all the other things.
Would we want to sort by comment?
No, I don't think so. So created by, assigned to, due date, and status, I think all make sense to sort by, but the comments don't.
All right.
So let's write a model level spec. Man, it's like it's listening to us. So, but it's not quite right. It's not created at, it's created by that we're gonna do.
But did we say created at earlier in the audio?
I don't think we did. I don't think it's that good yet.
This is like people complain that Facebook is listening to them.
Yeah.
And serving them ads. Copilot is listening to us.
Okay, so it's doing the right thing here, which is we need to create a person with a specific name that we know the sort order on, and then create tickets. And created by is the person attribute on a ticket. So that's right. Created by ascending, created by descending. It's pulling the way to do it from this other spec that we've written. But it's, yeah, I think this is right. Cool. Invalid sort option.
Do the tickets get generic ticket names generated for them?
By the factory?
Yes.
So the title is support ticket with a incrementing integer.
Okay.
So are you thinking that this is potentially going to make it could be sorting by title, even though, yeah.
Because the title sort order and the person sort order are the same. So how do we know that it's doing the right thing?
Right. So what should we set a title here that we have control over and not use numbers? So ticket names don't need to be unique. So we could just do them all the same.
Yeah, that could work.
That way we know it's, even if it were sorting on that, it wouldn't be a deterministic order. How does that sound?
Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering a little bit of maybe the order that they're created here as well.
Mm-hmm.
But this is probably
no. That's a good point, and I've come across specs where that's the case. But so if we,
so you create them out of order. We maybe should have done that for the tickets and the spec above as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just in case the implementation's actually, or the default sort order is sorting on created at or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tricky edge cases when testing sorting.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of them just come like knowing this as we're writing the specs or is really just coming from experience, I guess.
Yes. These are all times we've been burned by false positives.
Yeah. So invalid sort option created by ascending, which is pretty much what we expect. So in this case, yeah, that's right. The one thing is, so this is where we can run into a little bit of trouble. It's joining against it, or it's referencing people.name.
Right.
But if we're not including that in our scope,
can we see it fail? Or is it, oh, it's already included, so it's not going to fail?
Yeah, it's already included in here, but it's not included in, it's going to fail, in other words, because there's nothing in, when we run it in isolation, there's nothing. So at the controller level, it's referencing the right thing, but I think it's going to fail here. Yeah, so it's missing the from clause entry for the table people. So we could include people here, or we could include it actually in the implementation. Probably we'll want to do it in the
implementation. Would that break other situations where we've already tried to include it?
I don't think so. I think they should combine to be fine. You can include multiple times with the same thing, and they're just gonna override each other.
What about if you're doing includes versus joins?
That I don't know. I don't know what one takes precedence.
Like, would that potentially mess up some eager loading somewhere?
It might. There's also references, and I always forget what that does specifically. It's used to indicate the given table names are referenced by an SQL string and should therefore be joined in any query rather than loaded separately.
It works in conjunction with includes.
Yeah. It's when you're doing an includes and then you do a where, but you're using a string, Active Record is going to tries to optimize your query. So if you include something which is never referenced in a thing, it might optimize out the join.
I see.
That's my understanding about this. So in those cases where you have a string and it doesn't know the column or the table that it's supposed to be, in order to prevent it from optimizing it out, you tell, I am referencing that table. Okay, I always have to remind myself what that is. So that doesn't apply here. So we have includes, and then we have
unless the join is required by conditions.
Is that what it says? Yeah, unless a join is required by conditions. So that to me means we should use join in the sort by, because then includes will override it and eager load it.
Okay.
I don't know if that's actually correct, but it sounds like it's something to try. I'm glad the fire's not at your.
Yes. Can't join ticket onto association people.
I think it's just person.
Right, because you put the association name, not the table name.
Yeah.
Would we want to use a hash syntax here rather than a string?
We can. So it's people, name, direction, right?
Yes, I think so.
Direction.
Oh, it needs to be an array. So I think it's people, and then the inner thing is going to be an array, not a.
It can't be an array.
So, oh no! Oh, it wants.
What are we passing?
So we're giving this right here name ascending.
Yeah. That's interesting. So order is expecting right at the top level. So maybe we can't use the hash syntax there. That's syntax for where, but not order.
Right. I was sure order allowed you to do a hash syntax like that.
Let's look at the it's not in any of the examples. Cool. So we have a question in the chat which I missed. I was distracted. Let's take a break and go back to that. What's the reason why you're setting your data up with every if block? I actually talked about this yesterday as we were doing it. So this is generally the preferred approach that I would have, and I think thoughtbot general approach is to have our independent specs be independent and not build up the data in a before block or come from a big set of fixtures or something like that, so that when you're writing a spec, you know exactly what it depends on, and that there's not other things that it depends on, and you don't need to scroll up and down to find out what it depends on by going back and forth between a before block. And then we know that when someone changes the data that's required for another spec, it's not going to break our spec in isolation.
So the specs are independent, but they also tell a complete story.
Yeah. So that's the reason why. Thanks for the question. So I think we need to do this based on what I'm seeing, Joel.
I think you might be right.
I'm just going to remove that. Okay, so I removed the sorting and it came back in not in order. So our spec is passing now, and we were testing both directions there. So that sounds good. Yeah, it's totally fine. I agree with a marvelous. It's totally fine to repeat yourself in specs. I assume you agree, Joel.
Yes. I think sometimes the idea of dry is often sort of misapplied in specs. The idea of like, oh, we don't want uh, similar characters to be repeated when it's about more about sources of truth. And if these two things could diverge independently, then they shouldn't be coupled by extracting to a shared place. And oftentimes with tests, that is the part of the problem when you have some sort of shared before block or let expression. You then later on find out that the tests do want to diverge, and then you start putting conditions in them or all these things, and it just gets really tangled.
Right.
So, yep, if it diverges independently, it should not be extracted. That's not what dry is about.
Awesome. So while you were giving that great explanation, I wrote out the spec for assign to sorting. I noticed that Copilot picked up the fact that we changed the order of the tickets
Excellent.
being created. So we've got that. And then I ran it, and it's an invalid sort option. So let's actually just run the specs there so we can see the failure differently and not have to do it later. Okay, so it's no longer an invalid sort option, but it's not sorting by what we expect. That's funny. That is not. So I'm pausing here because this is ringing a bell for me. I think we're going to run into some trouble here because oh, it worked. I was going to say because I think under certain circumstances, once you filtered by assign to, the active record maps that to a different name.
It's interesting. Oh, if you're joining on assign to, because it's two associations that go to the same table.
Yeah. So let's see if we can. This is just from memory from working on adding filtering and sorting to another page. We're not going to be able to sort that. Well, let's put a pin in that and just try to remember that possibility.
Is the concern that that table will get aliased in the join?
Yeah, exactly. And if I remember right, I think once it gets aliased, this gets messed up.
Can we force an alias? Does joins allow us to specify an alias name?
I didn't think so. There's nothing here about that.
Okay.
Oh, I have to. The latest version of Dash is going to subscription, so I need to. I just upgraded, so I have to get that subscription. Dash is a great program. I know you use it too, right?
I do. I combine it with Alfred so that I can just start typing and get the docs show up instead of having to tab to another window.
I have it set to control space.
Oh, so, nice.
So it's just control space, and then I can type.
That's about the same as me because Alfred for me is command space.
Mm-hmm.
For those who don't know, Alfred is, I guess, a souped up Spotlight.
Right. So yeah, I have Spotlight to command space, and then when I know I want Dash, I do control space. Okay, so what was the other column that we wanted to do on?
We're gonna get the status, but not yet.
Yeah. Settle down there, Copilot. Look at that. It even put them out of order in the creation.
Excellent.
That looks correct to me. And it did the thing with the title that we were concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to worry about people?
I don't
Technically,
think so.
The names are also have incrementing IDs in them. If we go to the person factory.
Right. I don't think the person order matters.
Yeah.
Or I wouldn't be concerned about that being like a default scope or something like that.
Okay, so invalid sort option. It really wants us to do status next. Okay, so it failed without any ordering. And that looks right to me. Cool. Now status. Can we do status now? Oh, it's not creating everything. Let's see. Ticket 1, status, to do, done, working. So to do,
I guess,
working,
yeah.
done. Yeah, that's
so
right.
it even knows the order of the statuses.
Yeah, because I'm assuming that it's able to, either it's inferring that because it makes sense to do working done, or it's actually getting it from the enum. I'm not sure. It didn't suggest blocked, though.
Yeah, do we want one of each?
I think we do, yeah.
Do done tickets show up here?
Yeah, because we're not filtering by default by any status. So we're going to get all
Oh,
tickets.
yeah, I see done is there.
Yeah. So it'd be to do, working, blocked, done. So that's going to fail with a invalid option. Cool. So for this, so it failed because there's no order. So by default, a Rails enum stores its values as integers, right?
I want to say yes, but that may have changed in newer versions of Rails.
Yeah, it's also with Postgres. You can use an enum type. If we go to the schema, where is it? It's an integer.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're not using an enum type there. I'm actually not sure why, but it is an integer. So the order of the ones here is the order that will be 0, 1, 2, 3. So that passed. Okay. So what we said at the beginning was we weren't necessarily going to add a feature spec for every single column here.
Mm-hmm.
We still comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay. So let's go to the view then.
So technically we're adding some code here that's not in response to a failing test, but I think I'm okay with it. Specifically, I think a lot of UI things, like I don't test every bit of text or every link that I add to a page with a feature spec.
Yeah. I'm changing my mind about how to format this. They're not as long. They're not long. They're not super long. So I'm going to move them up on. Oh, maybe that one.
So you have Vim key bindings enabled here, right?
I do, yeah.
Would it work to do? I'm going to try to type something here.
Mm-hmm.
If I go here, oh, nice. They do have text objects here.
Yes.
I did a dit delete inner tag to just remove everything inside the HTML tags without having to backspace.
Oh, that's good. I have so much muscle memory around stuff. I tend not. I should use that more. I should use the tag stuff more. I tend to just use like like change word change, like I tend to use that more, but I should use the tag more.
There are a few text objects that I remember that I try to use, and tags are one of them. And then it's really nice because you don't have to be at the beginning of the thing. You can just be anywhere inside that tag and just say, hey, all of the text inside here, I want to change it out.
So we only have one ticket. So
does the add ticket button work?
It does, yeah. Huh. It's not working. It's not working either. That one's not working either.
Does the title work?
Nope. That's interesting. That seems like.
But our test passed.
Yeah. Let me. So one of the things about Filterific is that it stores previously set cookies in the session.
Okay.
To preserve your search. And we ran into yesterday where we didn't have something, so it was set as not being set, and it was messing. It was preserved in the session, and we weren't getting the behavior we expected. So let's just rule that out. Okay, so that's not the issue.
Is it the auto submit on the form? Can we maybe look at the network tab?
This is a get request with the sorted by title descending, and then it puts all the other filters. It's really hard
Okay.
to see. Actually, a better way would
Yeah,
be.
I mean, I can kind of see it in the URL bar up top.
So it's doing sorted by title descending, and then it puts all the other filters you have automatically in the URL as well, because we're giving it the filter object. So you're right that the spec is passing, the feature spec too. So I'm honestly not sure. And then that is,
Is it reloading these via Turbo?
that's maybe that is what's happening. Let's see. So this is the either that or it's not reloading them via Turbo. Let's see. So it is doing a request, and the param is coming through. So maybe it's actually not. Well, this SVG is changing.
That's true.
This is interesting.
Does Turbo replace the whole table, or is it just replacing the header?
Let's check. I thought it was currently replacing the whole. There was nothing on the index to.
Is our feature spec running with JavaScript enabled?
It is not. No.
Okay. So that's why it works, because we can make we're making just regular GET requests. We're clicking a link.
Yeah, that's a good indicator that it is a Turbo problem.
I get very uncomfortable when my tests pass, but the code or the app doesn't behave the way I expect it to.
So let's just add JS true there, so it'll run in the JavaScript thing.
Now we expect that this will fail in the same way that we're seeing it fail in the browser.
Yeah. Oh, what it's failing by is when we run the JavaScript, we run a bunch of accessibility checks.
Okay.
We can the problem is the JavaScript library we use for the replacing like autocomplete selects and that kind of thing doesn't put the right ARIA attributes on the elements, and so we're currently dealing with that, but we have to, for right now, ignore that. This is failing because some images don't have an alt attribute. This is the person image. The reason why they don't have an alt attribute is because they're right next. They're right next to the person's name in text. And so a screen reader with an alt attribute on that would say the person's name twice. So we actually don't want alt text on that image. feels a little weird to ignore that rule, but for the purpose of this, we'll just ignore it. We'll probably remove this anyway. What I'm looking for is the rule name, so it's image alt. It passed.
I don't like that.
No, I don't like that either. So it's possible that something else is happening.
Unless there's something really weird just in our browser.
Right.
Have we refreshed the page?
I'm pretty sure I did.
Yeah, otherwise you wouldn't have gotten those links.
Yeah. So one thing I'm noticing is it's not like, well, we checked. It is doing the request. Okay. It's doing the requests. So let's do assign to, and then look. And it did assign to ascending, sorted by.
Those all look fine.
Let's delete the cookie one more time.
Is the cookie potentially a problem because we've been doing development, or is this the kind of thing that could bite a user of the...
It would bite a user if you changed one of the attribute names and they had the cookie set. It would be the same thing.
There's a comment suggestion that we try it in an incognito window.
Apparently, I've forgotten how to open an incognito window in
Safari.
In Safari, it just opened a new tab group. Did they change the? Oh, Shift Command N. That's what I typed, unless I messed up.
All right. Moment of truth.
Nope.
Okay, so it's not a cookie thing.
Okay. Let's go back to the view.
So we know it is a link. It's really there. Actually, what if you try to open that link in another tab?
Okay.
Will that do the right thing? So then we know it's not doing any like turbo thing or anything like that. It's just going to...
Okay.
So that's sorted up and the other tab should be sorted down.
And usually title descending, title ascending. So it seems like it's completely ignoring that. Let's just...
Yeah. Can we look at maybe the response? I guess no, this is already what we're seeing.
Okay, the filtering is still working.
I'm thinking it's actually rendering them potentially in the wrong order.
What do you mean?
So when we make that request to the server, I think it's just potentially rendering the wrong HTML, which I'm surprised that the test passes. Because we did test both directions.
Look.
Oh,
we're overriding the ordering.
wait, but
Here,
then
we
why does our
never
test
remove this.
pass?
That is a great question. I have
I
no idea.
Before we delete this line, I want to see that test fail.
Yeah. Uh, okay. So the ticket, the test that passes. Yeah. Let's speed this up by removing the
Yes. So
JavaScript.
we went 1, 2, 3, and then 3, 2, 1.
And we saw this test fail before I think.
It was failing because it couldn't click on title.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure.
What do you want to do?
What if you were to put some entirely different order in here? Like 2, 3, 1 at the end. Would it still pass? What?
I have no idea what's happening.
I'm really confused right now. Because the assertion is correctly checking order.
Mm-hmm.
And clicking title seems to correctly change that order. Do you want to maybe change the order of ticket creation or 1, 2, 3 so that they're not? Yeah, we are checking both directions, so that.
Right.
How is it working with both directions if they're always rendered in the same order?
Unless they're not. Let's go to the source. So this is gonna save the HTML at each of these points and then open it. It's not going to be styled, but it'll.
I guess we could have done a save and open screenshot. So we got 3, 2, 1.
Only the JavaScript.
And 1, 2, 3.
That's really interesting.
We've not messed with any of the filters because it's showing the same 3. But if we're hard coding the ordering, how is that possible?
Unless that's not actually the problem. I assumed it was because, but in theory, you can chain orders and the last one will.
Oh, I see. So maybe we're not
right?
hard coding the ordering then.
Yeah, maybe not. Let's look at the query. So what we're looking for is ticket load to be due. This is attempting to sort by due on.
Let's see. We got ticket count, cache ticket count,
ticket load. It's sorting by due on.
Okay.
Maybe it is a turbo problem. let's
Actually, I guess we would find that out by, well, I was going to say disabling JavaScript. It worked when JavaScript was enabled in the test. But if we try it in the browser and disable JavaScript and it works.
We also opened a new tab and that didn't do it.
That's true.
So let's disable the persistence functionality. I want to disable the persistence functionality anyway, because I don't think we want it to save. I think every time you come back to tickets, it should probably.
Yes.
So let's do that. I forget the syntax actually. I think it's persistence ID false. Yeah, and if we always want tickets, to never, the filter never to be persisted, we can put it right in the filters as a default.
Okay. So now it's outside the default filter params. Is that the syntax?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
It's outside. So let's just delete the cookie. So it's changing the SVG.
Right.
So it knows what attribute and order it's supposed to be sorting in.
Right.
And then it's not changing.
I'm curious if we look at the network tab and look at the returned HTML, because since this is Turbo, it's going to send us back a fragment, right?
It's going to actually, right now it's set up to send back the whole page, and then Turbo picks out the...
Can we look at the actual page that's sent back?
Yeah.
And see if that one is sorted?
Why did it do so many requests? Oh. This is for the images. This is the tickets request. So this is where it's sorted by title ascending. It is putting data remote true on it. And then the order is an example ticket, another ticket. That's the order. That actually is the correct order. That's ascending.
Right. But that might be the default. So if we try it descending now. Still the same order. Well, no, where's the second one? Oh, right there.
And this is supposed to be descending. So it should be in the opposite order.
Correct.
Okay, so we're getting back the right or the wrong HTML.
And
Let's
yet
take
the
another look.
query in the database ran correctly.
Yeah, it was. Let's just verify.
Do on ascending. Wait, still searching do on?
Then tickets title. It's joining the two orders together. So it's not overwriting. It's chaining them together.
Oh, every time you...
Right. So this ordered here is ordering by do on.
Oh.
Then the second one is ordering by title. So the sorry, it's off the screen. What we're seeing in the log is this query is what's in the log. So it's order by, tickets due on, ascending, tickets title, descending. So the first thing it's ordering by is due on all the time.
So if we were to go in a hard code a due on date in the feature spec, we would see our feature spec fail. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So what I think we want to do.
I think you do them 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
We were kind of assuming that it would be created on, it would be that 1, 2, 3.
So now no matter what we do, it's going to do 1, 3, 2. Yeah. It got
All
1,
right.
3,
All
2.
right.
We figured it out.
Again, the kind of things that you only learn through experience.
Well, this one, it took us trial and error to figure it out.
And it's the kind of thing where normally this bites you with created at, because that's often the default scope.
Right. Okay, so now in the tickets controller, we definitely want to remove this. And this should pass. Again.
Yes.
So now do we want to, this is always a question, that served value in finding the bug, but is it going to serve value 6 months from now to this spec?
Right. I think because that seems to be a like default-ish scope, right? It's just called ordered.
Mm-hmm.
I think I might leave that there.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense too, because we are going to add a default sort order to the page. We don't have one yet because we just removed it, but we are, and it would be good to know that they don't, and it will be due on, and so it'll be good to know that they don't interact and reintroduce this bug.
I love how much confidence you're having in the test here, but I kind of want to see it work in the browser as well. We're talking as if we're assuming that everything works.
That's a good point. Ta-da!
All right, there it is.
So let's actually remember that problem that I said before. If we filter, who's this? Aiden. And then we sort by assigned to. Okay, then we sort by created by. Okay, good. It's working. So it's not there. Excuse me. Probably the other case where it was happening was a more complex query joining against multiple tables, and it was probably doing too much aliasing and messing up. So this one's more straightforward. So it's probably figuring it out.
I think it's because we're maybe not joining on. Oh, I guess, yeah, because we're joining on the assigned to and the created by for the filter.
Yeah. So I'm guessing it's just it's doing the right thing because it's not getting confused by the complexity of the query.
All right. Well, we got it working.
We got it working.
I think it's
So
time to commit.
yeah, good call. Oh, I would like to review the diff. We removed the ordered. We ended up removing the persistence in our, I think, but that's what I wanted to do anyway. I wanted it to not persist. We've got our new sorts. We've got the sorting headers. And then we've got our new specs.
Mm-hmm.
Good. So what do we do?
The ability to sort.
Yeah, actually, we did the ability to sort for all the other columns, right?
Yes, except for comment. I'd be happy to just say, well, that works too.
Okay, so now default sort order, I think, is what we want to do to get this functionality finished for sorting, at least. Why did it preserve?
Oh, yeah, preserved your filters.
Maybe because I already know.
Now one filter is gone?
That's the default.
Okay.
The default is to filter, because you're not on the support team. It's the default is to filter to your own tickets, to the ones you created.
Okay, that makes sense.
So now let's do that. So maybe I'm wrong about being able to do this here. And maybe you need to do it in the controller.
I mean, it does feel like a controller level thing.
Yeah. So I just refreshed the page and it lost the sort order. And then, oh. Okay. We probably, well, we don't have a spec for default order. It probably would have exercised that and found out that it wasn't working. So
is there a default order we want?
Do on.
Okay.
So we have a couple of different options. We have this spec up top, which is like the generic filtering spec for viewing tickets and then filtering by different things. So we could check that they're ordered in the way that we expect within this spec, or we could write or we could write a new scenario for.
I think I would do it as part of the initial spec.
Okay.
But this is default behavior, so you'd expect that in just your kind of regular trying it out. Can we change up the order there?
Yeah. Okay. So So we should expect when we come to this page a couple of things. We should expect that the page has the indicator that it's sorted by due and that it actually is sorted by due. And the reason why is the reason why I'm saying that is because of the bug that we had fixed. Like it was sorted by due, but the indicator wasn't there because there was another scope that was actually the thing doing the sorting, not filterific.
Right.
So to be really thorough, we would check for that. It's going to be complicated though, because we're really digging into the markup to get that order.
I mean, we probably could just assert that the table header with the text due on contains a image or something like that.
Yeah, and we could add an aria. There should probably be
at the very least, it should probably have a some alt text, right? That seems something that if the image is not loading, you would want to know that it's up or down.
Yeah. Wait, Z to A is not sort ascending.
Correct. Oh, interesting. But it is the ascending indicator here.
That's funny.
If we misnamed our SVG?
No, it's because... Oh, maybe.
Because the ascending indicator goes Z to A, and the descending indicator goes A to Z.
My guess is the reason why. So what is this one?
Oh, we're inlining it so we don't.
I would have thought that the inline SVG tag method adds the alt, but it might not. So we're not going to be able to tell unless you can read raw SVGs and know what they.
Right.
But my point is that right now we are sorting by title ascending. Yeah, I think our SVGs might just be misnamed. That's interesting. So inline SVG tag. Does take options, class.
Does SVG allows you to have alt text?
That's a good question. I know we can do this. Yeah, it looks like it probably doesn't, and the reason being it has its title tag. It has a title tag.
Right.
but we can do that.
Can we pass a title in there?
Yep. Yeah. What that does is it's going to modify the SVG as it puts it out to put a title tag in there, if I'm not mistaken.
Does it need the ARIA Boolean flag there?
No, it's independent.
What does ARIA adds common accessibility attributes to the SVG? And it's probably a good idea to have it anyway.
Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. So now if we go back here and so now it has a title sort ascending. Yeah, and I mean, that is the sort ascending thing. And so I think our SVG is just misnamed.
The file name is...
Yeah. That's funny. That doesn't ring a bell to me, so I don't think I've ever noticed it before. It's an easy thing to miss, I guess, but that's funny. Should we fix it?
The file name?
Yeah.
I wonder if there might be a context where that icon might make sense as a
No, you can see here the only other place it's used is similar sorting functionality, and there it's also
all right. Well, if it's only used in one place, why not? Wait, it is similarly used incorrectly in that other place?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, so now wait, I just confused myself.
Yes.
We changed both places. Oh no, that's right.
Mm-hmm. we do need to change both places.
Yeah. And then we also need to change.
Yes, because descending should be ZA.
Is the only thing we changed here? We didn't set the default yet.
No, we move the persistence.
So what I'm doing is I'm just committing the removal of the persistence as its own commit.
Okay.
Or actually, we fixed the removal of persistence. Filters. And then now we should only have the SVG change outside of the spec. Fix naming of sort indicator SVG Okay, now we're back to just the spec that we were.
Yep. And I think technically you also included in that previous commit the fact that we added accessibility to it.
Okay. Okay. All right, we're back to our spec. And we were going to
So you expect it to be sorted.
so the way that I would probably do this we need to make sure that this is on the we need to make sure that this is on the correct.
Right. So instead of asserting on the page, could we assert, like, just find a node and assert on that?
Yeah. But we need to be able to find.
That would be the th with the text status. No, do on.
Yeah. So we can do within. I actually don't know. Yeah, I think you can do that. I think it just takes any. And then we want to find the ticket.
I like that taking the time to write this test pushed us to make an accessibility improvement to the code.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. So what is on this page? I think we're gonna run into a little bit of trouble here because I think this is filtered down to only the person's ticket and there's only one ticket.
Ah.
So I think this is fine, but we need to move this to a part of the spec where we're seeing multiple tickets.
Right. Are we okay? Because we're already visiting the ticket path. How is it already filtered?
By the default filters.
Oh, by default it filters to just their tickets. I see.
Yeah. So.
Oh, and then we unselect person name from created by, select all.
Yeah. So then we change it to be assigned to, and there's still only one ticket. It's not until the end where we.
Can we have them start with 2 tickets assigned to them? Maybe.
It's gonna break all the other assertions in this job. I think if we just.
How would you feel about doing a separate test? Maybe.
Yeah, we could do that.
Because I kind of like having this, because we're testing the default behavior. I feel a little bit uncomfortable about clicking on a bunch of things and then asserting that what happens is still the default.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy some of this. And then I'm going to delete it from the. And we no longer need to.
Correct.
now we have, so this, we're really just checking so this other stuff, we need to make sure that it's two assigned tickets, basically. Two created tickets by the person who's logged in. Status needs to be active, actually. Okay, and now we can expect our ticket titles, and it should be 2 and 1. Do you think this is going to pass? No, because we don't have a default yet. Cool. Yeah, that is what we expect, because there's no, right now, when you go to the page with nothing, there's no SVG for sorting showing.
All right, so that is the expected error.
Yeah. So if now in the filters, I actually don't, I don't know if
this is a default
this completely overrides, or these two, I don't know off the top of my head whether they merge or whether it completely overrides it.
Do you think this should be set in the controller or in the model?
Well, if we wanted a default sort order for filters anytime, for tickets anytime the filters are used, I would think it would be in the model. This is the only, actually, there is an API, but it's only for creating tickets.
Yeah. I think I'd feel comfortable doing it in the controller.
Yeah. So it's due on ascending. Yeah. So this might pass, actually. Yeah.
There it is.
So now when we go here, it's due on, it's ascending. The indicator is there. Nice. Let's run all the ticket specs just for good measure. Well, we were thrown for a loop for a while on that that default or that order being not hard coded, but well, actually, it was hard coded and then added on to.
Right. It's a weird composition of ordering scopes.
Oh. Okay. Well, I pushed that. You want to take a break?
I think that's a great place to take a break.
Awesome. Let's take a 5-minute break, and we will
be back in 5 minutes.
Welcome back.
So in the first half, we got our sorting working.
We did. Oh, the music's still going. There we go. We got the sorting working. We had default sort. So really, the next thing to do, I think, is to be able to filter by. We can either make it so that you can filter by any of the statuses, or filter by due date. Why would you want to filter by due date? This doesn't seem like a compelling.
I guess maybe you might want to filter in a date range if there were a lot, but I'm not going to look for particularly, maybe for someone who's in a support role who's got a ton of tickets and they just want to say, what are the ones that are due today so I can focus on those? But then you would just filter for that. Or not filter, you would sort.
Sort, right. You might want to sort only by overdue tickets.
Oh, I see. So you would like
filter
for overdue or not.
All the overdue ones are going to be at the top of the list, though.
That's true.
Yeah, that's not very compelling. Let's not do that.
We can more statuses.
Yeah, let's do statuses.
So why are we currently only limited to what is it, active and inactive? Or
so active isn't a status; it's a shortcut for to do, working, and block. So not done tickets.
I see. So this is basically a Boolean done or not done.
Mm-hmm. And so what we want to do is change this to a multi-select and then default to do, working, and done being to do, working, and blocked being populated in it. And then people can do what they want with that. So the default behavior isn't going to change at all. When you come to the page, it's going to only be active tickets, but instead of active being in the drop down, it's going to be to do, working, and blocked.
That makes sense. Do we need to change any of our existing specs for that?
Yeah, because we're no longer going to say one active ticket. It's going to be like one ticket with the status. You can, if you have a different suggestion for wording, there might be a more succinct way to put this. One ticket. I think actually these should be for who created it.
I like that.
You know, even though I think we should do this because it's not one pro of this is it makes it explicit. What does active doesn't really mean anything. What does active mean? But it is sort of nice to just have the concept of active be shorter.
Right. The thing is, though, that this text would then change when somebody chooses only to do or working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now they're no longer active. So we would have to introduce like a special case that says when specifically those three are chosen, then replace that string with active.
Yeah. I don't want to do that. one ticket. Okay. So one of the things, well, I can't anticipate. I don't know whether you want to change the spec now, but what's going to happen, we're going to change this to a multi-select. And so that means that when we select done, we're then adding it to the existing ones,
Right.
not just replacing it.
We would need to clear the multi-select first, and then
Yeah.
is that an action you can do, or do you have to go through and unselect all of them?
I don't know.
I see there's unselect here.
Yeah, but there's also, it's going to turn into a JavaScript drop down. So we have these helpers for Capybara to be able to do things
Okay.
with it. So there's actually, it looks to me like there's no way to unselect choices at all now. We'll need to do that. So if we're going to do that, we might as well make one to clear all the choices.
Right. What does it look like in the UI? Is there a clear all button, or is it a, I guess for our purposes, it doesn't really matter.
No, there's not. So when you have multiple things selected,
Okay.
You can hit the delete key to delete them.
Oh, I see.
I don't know why it's losing focus. That's weird. It doesn't usually. Oh, because it's reloading the full page. So we're going to want to stop that. So what I was saying, sorry, it might not be clear, but I was, after every one I was deleting, it was losing the focus. And that's because the form is also being refreshed every time the results changes. So we're going to use a turbo function to make that persistent, that section of the page persistent. And it's okay because we are changing the UI of the filter form. So we don't need it to come back from the server. It doesn't actually change. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So there's no like UI we can click on in order to remove items from this combo box style thing. We would need to send it the delete key.
There's also there is a JavaScript method to clear, I think, all the items.
I kind of don't like doing that.
I don't either. I like to do it through the UI. So let's...
Assuming we had that method, we could go... I guess...
So
here
I like
have
to...
like a clear all?
Yeah. Oh. This spec's not using JavaScript.
And then JavaScript is going to be necessary once we start. Wait, how does it work with the...
Because multi-selects are valid HTML too.
Oh, so it's building a regular multi-select in HTML.
So...
Okay.
So that's fine. So we can, in theory, what we would do here is unselect to do from status, unselect working from status, unselect block from status, and select done from status. Okay. So let's run that. I think it's going to fail right off the bat because it's going to say
not a
one active
multi-select
ticket. No, it's the body of the page says one active ticket.
Oh, yes, yes.
And now we are expecting it to be specific about which ones it's there. So let's go one level down, and that's the controller. So ticket index is loading the filters, and it is setting a default status of just active.
And you're suggesting we then replace that with an array of to-do, working, or blocked.
And then that's gonna, actually it might not fail. It might just not work anymore. Oh no, it did. So it's trying to call capitalize in the view.
Oh, on the status.
Yeah. So if we go to the view, we were just calling capitalize on the status previously, but now we have an array.
Right. So that be, I guess you'd map capitalize over that and then 2-sentence maybe?
Yeah. I'm just wondering whether we have a helper. We have a helper for doing arrays of models, slugs. No, we don't. We don't. That's probably pushing what I like to do in a view. Like,
okay,
that would be my limit, I think. So I think we're within my limit, but I wouldn't want to do much more within the view.
And that's because we're doing multiple methods in the view.
Multiple things with Ruby yeah. I don't know. How do you feel?
Yeah, I think I'm similarly a little bit stingy with what I put in the view. I like doing it in Ruby. I like doing it in a place where I can easily test.
So now we have I'm having trouble parsing out the do you see it?
Right here, and blocked. Rather than I'm on the wrong screen.
Right.
Yeah, so it's and right blocked here, rather than or blocked. So I think we need, in our 2-sentence, we need to put what the joiner word is going to be, and I don't know what that is.
It was actually up here. Last word connector.
Okay.
Oh, you need to do the comma too?
Oh, for those who don't like the Oxford comma?
Whoops. Wait, the Oxford comma is to have the comma or to not have the comma?
To have the comma.
Okay. I must have the comma.
Also, I did want to point out we have a couple comments that came in.
Oh, sorry, I didn't have the screen up.
When asking about view components. Because that is an interesting conversation. When do you have, like, when is too much for the view, and then what are the alternatives that you like?
So we actually do use view components for one thing in this app. And they're fine. I have to say I didn't find it like, it didn't like click for me as like, oh, this is the way that it should always be done, which I think it has for some people. And that, I don't know, I'm comfortable with Rails helpers. What about you?
I've not used a view component on a project before. So I think the idea of it intrigues me. I guess way back in the day, I was on a project where I more or less rolled my own.
Mm.
The general idea that everything should be a Ruby object and that templates should purely just be translating attributes in Ruby into markup.
So we wrote our spec to say with the status as part of this.
Right.
And that needs to be conditional because if there's no filter on status, we don't want to display that at all. We did have a helper for doing that. Filter array present. So it takes the filters and then the name of the array you want to check. So this would be with status.
Wait, so what does that do? It conditionally. Oh, I see. It's a condition.
Yeah,
right?
I forgot the if.
So like, is that a method that ends in a question mark that does not return a Boolean and instead does something else?
No, I just forgot the if. So what it does is it looks to see whether that array is present and it has something besides blank values in it. And it'll return true if it does.
So I'm looking at all of this here, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is like entirely Ruby.
Maybe it should be a view component for.
It might be a view component. I could even see pulling that out into some kind of method somewhere, because we're trying to build up a sort of dynamic string.
Yeah, but it does use a bunch of HTML. So like these are all links to the people.
Okay. So it's not just text.
It's not just text. So this helper method is going through and it's doing things like it looks like a model class does it. Reject all the we're going to reject all the values. We're going to try to use it as a model in order to look it up by slug. So what we have is slugs here, and we're going to look them up by slug. And then if that works, then link each one. Otherwise, fall back to just using the name of the model.
Okay.
And then join everything together. So we could certainly do. And then we need to have this string be something that you can customize, because it doesn't make sense. Like when we're listing filtering by departments, we would say something like in with the department name. So
that's why you pass that in as a block.
Yeah. So I think you're right that there would be other ways and potentially cleaner ways to put all this functionality together. But that's
I'm going to say that's out of scope, though, for the current work we're doing.
Yes, I agree.
Out of scope for this commit. It might be a future refactor.
Mm-hmm.
I find that a lot of the work that I do tends to, like, I might be going through and then decide that I need to make some changes. And work tends to fall into either it's the actual feature work I'm doing, either it's some refactoring that enables the feature work, or it's like a cleanup refactor that happens afterwards.
Yeah.
And I'll tend to keep those separated in 3 different commits. So kind of a pre-refactor, a feature change, and then a potentially a kind of cleanup refactor afterwards.
Yeah. Okay, so the failure we're getting now is undefined method compact blank for the active string. So it's somewhere the active string is still coming through.
in our test.
Yeah, we haven't changed the view yet to make that a multi-select, so it's still
Correct.
passing it in strings once we tried to actually filter by it. So that means we can go to the form. I have an issue where we changed our style guide to match standard to not have spaces in the hashes. And that's fine. I'm fine with that. But there's so much view code that doesn't do that, and standard doesn't apply. At least on this app, doesn't apply to the Ruby that's in a view.
Okay.
And so it doesn't enforce it. But then you notice I typed it without spaces because I've gotten used to that, and then I had to change it because everything else in the view has spaces. Myra says, if you have logic in your views, why not view helpers?
I think that is mostly what we're doing. We're using view helpers instead of view components.
Right. So we're using helpers here. These are all helpers. But I think what Myra's asking is like, should there be a helper? You could encapsulate this in a helper as well.
I think that was kind of what I was, or where I was going earlier. And I think the answer is yes, we could do that. And that's probably out of scope for the work that we're currently doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks, Myra. And Kevin says, is confirming apparently standard doesn't work on views. So maybe there is a way to make it. And then, yes, it would make a good blog post. I should look at it. That's one of those things that, you do your day-to-day work and you keep on hitting it, and yet you just never like look into it more. Like, hey, can this be made to work on views?
Sometimes like little bits of pain, you just kind of get used to them. You're just like, yep, that's the way it is. Instead of, no, we can make it better.
So we changed that to be, the old filters are still in the URL. So we changed that to be a multi-select, but we're hard coding the values in the form, which we no longer want to do. What we want to do,
we want that enum.
But we're going to need to make them pretty. So we want to capitalize them.
That feels like something that should probably have a helper, right?
Yeah. And yeah.
Does it not do that automatically with the form helper? If you pass it a collection of an array
of strings.
If you pass an array of strings, will it not capitalize the?
No.
Huh. Okay.
Because it doesn't know that that's what you want to have happen. You could be passing in strings where you don't want it capitalized. But we do have a view helper in this app where we collect all the form option helpers that we have. And so we could introduce a new one here. I was just making sure that there wasn't already one. I'm pretty sure that there wasn't.
Right. They all seem very specific.
Yeah. So
do you tend to test your view helpers?
I do. In this case, I was comfortable not doing it with a focus spec because of the way we're writing the feature spec. We're literally testing that all of the options that we expect to be there are there. And so that made me feel like I didn't need to worry about that.
Okay, I guess I'm seeing by the title there, it looks like you're going to write something specific to this situation. And I think my assumption was that we were going to maybe do something that was a little bit more generic, where you can give it an array of strings, and it will build that nested array for you.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is not what I was going to do. I was going to return the list of ticket options, and the method was going to be called like ticket status options.
Oh, and it would be just the hard coded, like all the ticket options.
I was going to do ticket dot statuses. Yeah, statuses. Yeah, exactly that. This is what I was going to do.
And then you don't need the second parameter here, right? Because statuses is a one-dimensional array.
Yep. So that's what I was going to do.
Okay.
This is not correct. It would just be, there's a syntax for, do you know it, for reading the attributes or the options for an enum?
It might have been just pluralizing the column,
yeah.
right?
Okay, yeah, maybe. So are you good with that and then not writing and just using the feature spec?
I think that's fine. I would maybe consider at some point making or seeing if we want something generic here. Especially if we find that we're doing that in a few different places.
Yeah, I don't know that we're doing it in other places. So this is saying undefined method titleized for, and then it is getting an array. We should have trusted Copilot.
Helper. Oh, right, because it returns as a...
It's the string value and the integer value. So we have one ticket with the status leading comma. There must be a blank not being. Yeah. So we're not rejecting blanks here. So this is getting to the point where we're doing too much, in my opinion. If we start rejecting blanks, you know what I mean?
Why would there be a blank
because
in here?
Filterific likes to add blank items to it's because include blank. I think either Filterific or the choices thing. Oh, no, this isn't using JavaScript. Let's if you look in the Oh, actually, this isn't going to show it because other places are rejecting the blanks.
Okay.
Well, suffice to say,
we need to reject
something
blanks
is putting
here.
blanks in this, and that's why all these filter helpers that we have, like this one, compacts blank.
I see.
So in theory, we could use compact blank here.
Can we do that and see that the test passes?
Sure. Yeah. Well, the
It's a different error now.
it is a different error, yeah. So we got all the way down to the bottom of the spec where we're looking for 2 done tickets in the spec.
Okay.
That sounds like something we didn't change. Yeah. So this should be 2 tickets with the status done. Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, so now let's extract this into a generic helper.
Does our test have the correct behavior?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
Because
So we've
remember,
actually
we added
done
the unselects where we removed all the other filters, and we filtered just by done.
Okay.
And we had the spec that, and then at this last one, we put it back to all people, all assigned, and the only filter remaining is the done, and that's what we end up with.
Excellent. Can we look at that in the browser before we switch to refactoring?
I'm realizing as I switched away that this is interesting because the way that this was written, if there was additional text in the view, like assigned to whatever, this test would still pass.
Which is
because it would match the fragment. It's fine because we're not
testing that it's doing anything with other filters.
It's good enough. I think we are testing. We're removing this, and then we're checking to see whether we now see the ticket that we didn't see before, and that there's 2 of them on the page because there's 2 done tickets.
Right.
And if we were filtering by other assigned, there wouldn't be 2 tickets shown.
Right.
And we wouldn't see this ticket. So we are doing that, but this is like specific enough to actually exercise what we're trying to do or assert what we're trying to do.
So let's see that it works in the browser, and then.
So now if we want to filter just to done, it's reloading the page every time. Oh, are there no done tickets? We don't have it set up so that if there's none, it does all.
Okay.
That's something that we definitely want.
So maybe that's why you need the blank.
Okay.
But our test is green.
Mm-hmm. So let's commit.
Well, we could commit, we could commit here. I was going to suggest maybe we do the refactor because that is part of the TDD cycle.
Yeah. I think it depends on whether we consider this a bug. It's more like undefined behavior. It's just mismatched from the other ones where nothing selected means all generally. And this one, nothing selected means no status.
I think if we want to work on that, I would introduce another test or modify the existing test to handle that.
So actually, if we go to the scope, if we go to the ticket filter and we go to with status, look, it is still, we never changed it to not look for active anymore. And it works with an array because when you pass an array to where it's going to blow it out. But it's not really expecting an array. And I bet if we go to our specs, yeah. So we're only passing in one thing. It's testing the active behavior. And so we should improve these specs. Right?
Mm-hmm. Do we even want active to be a thing anymore?
No, we don't.
All right.
So now we're just going to return the tickets with the given statuses. We've got to do, working, blocked, and done being created. Might as well just
this
do.
will now be an array.
To do, working, blocked. That should pass.
I think that's good that we're basically testing multiple statuses, a single status.
Yeah,
that
the thing is, in the real app, we're never going to get a single status. It's now that it's a multi-select.
It's going to be an array.
It's always going to be an array.
It's going to be an array with a single element in it, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, the thing is because of the way Active Record works, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But I would want to change the spec so that, like, the API we expect is sort of clear and specific.
Yes.
Or explicit.
And then we could add a case in there. Well, yeah, we can delete that. Yeah. And that should still pass. We probably want to add a case in there for the blank.
Right. So by default, a scope that returns nil will return all. So what we actually want to do is reject we want to do this right here. We want to reject the blanks and let it return nil. Let the scope return nil if there are none.
Yes, I'd like to start with a spec though.
Great. Thank you for the reminder. It returns all tickets when no statuses are given.
And does that mean that it gets an empty array, or does it mean it gets an array with the empty string?
It gets an empty array.
Okay.
Well, we can put an empty string in there too. It'll be the same behavior either way, and this will check that we're not just checking for an empty array, but we're actually rejecting blanks.
Okay. If we're doing that, then I would like to see tests for both cases, because those feel like two edge cases where if we don't get it quite right,
would you do it in the same spec?
Sure.
Well, then would you also do one for a string with a space in it? I'm just giving you a hard time.
And I assume that we don't really think nil is going to be a thing that comes up.
It always comes up, Joel.
Who are we kidding? This is Ruby. Anything could be nil at any time.
Okay, so we're expecting all of them and we got none, which matches the behavior that we had in the view.
All right. So now we can write the implementation.
This should be statuses. Oh, Kevin's got it. Here he goes. This is it. This is exactly what we want to do. So
an array with all of them at the same time in the test.
Yes. I
That's
agree with that.
interesting.
So let's just finish this thought, and then we'll go back and we'll change this back to match what Kevin suggests. Ugh. What is this going to suggest here? Argument statuses was shadowed by a local variable before it was used. Oh, because
this is statuses.
Yeah. Okay. In the back of my head, I've been thinking there's got to be a more succinct way to write this. And the only thing that I could come up with was that. And I was like, never mind, forget it.
I guess you could do some sort of like guard clause style.
I don't like those.
You asked for succinct.
I know. I think what I should end up doing is introducing a helper method, because it's just done so many times throughout all these filter things to reject the blanks and check if there are, and then use them. So you could write a block method that does
without
that.
Blanks.
Yeah. Okay, so we passed there, which is what we were hoping for. And so now use
we get our big list of
and then we can just
I do want to keep the one that tests the empty array.
Yeah, exactly. Great.
All right.
So now if we go back to the browser, and we need to add a placeholder. If we were being super strict, we should check that in the spec, but that's just...
Again, I don't see that much value in asserting on all pieces of UI, particularly text.
Yeah. Cool.
So if we get a sort of fresh... Oh, so here we've got our all showing here.
And this is also doing and right here. Yeah, that's a a known sort of, I know this about this library.
Okay.
What we really need is a conditional placeholder where or something like that. And they all our filters have that problem. I would like to eventually fix that, but that's outside of the scope of what we're doing right now.
So if we clear these, will it go back to showing all? Start with all of that, and then if we start clearing the statuses to get it back to blank.
So it's showing all the tickets. We only have 2 tickets. So the connector word was and.
There's a question asking if we can have some unassigned tickets.
Yeah, if we just go into this ticket, we can make it unassigned. So that shows unassigned, and
when you sort by assigned to, the unassigned ones go away?
Thanks a lot, Myra.
Well, I guess we found a bug.
Is that what happened?
Is that our filter scope?
Oops, I accidentally clicked on Oh, yeah. Myra says, I used to be help desk. That explains it. It should be showing all assigned to. Let's just go back to the beginning here. So it wasn't until I sorted. Yeah, the reason why is because we're joining against the people table and it's doing a inner join.
All right, we need a
Not an
left
outer
join
join.
here.
Okay, that is definitely a bug and we definitely need to fix it. But we were right in the middle of something else.
Yes.
So let's just make a note, outer join people. And you know what? That's probably going to then make the bug that I saw about aliasing the table but let's just.
Yes, that's going to be a separate bug, something that needs ideally a test that covers that.
Yeah. Okay, what were we in the middle of?
I can't believe we didn't think to, in our sample data, to have an unassigned person, both in the UI, but also in the tests.
Yeah.
Like we tested all the
default factory
order problems.
It's a good point. The default factory for a ticket has an assignee, and it probably shouldn't because it's not a required field.
Yes, that is true. And that's something we tend to push pretty strongly. The idea that factories should not have, or the base factory shouldn't have any attributes that are not required.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, what were we right in the middle of though?
We were looking to make sure, so the test worked, and we were going to see in the UI that when we removed all of the filters, it showed all, and I think we did see that.
Yeah, we did. Okay.
So I think we can commit here. Okay. We did talk about once we hit that, like we went through red, we went green, we might want to refactor a helper out of some of the things in the view. We were talking about also potentially the connector word.
The connector word, yes. So that is also in where we were keeping on adding. This is when there are two words, it's 2-word connector is or. I think we need the spaces. Two words connector. And then we also
gotta pluralize correctly.
Yeah. And then we also need just words connector, right? Because that should be, that's
the default. Yeah. So we go down to 1 or go down to 2.
Yeah, blocked or to do. Okay.
Excellent.
I'm just gonna. Okay, do you want to fix that bug or do you want to extract this into a helper?
Let's extract this into a helper. I think the bug is maybe something we could do separately.
Yeah. Oh, I just saw the time. It's 11:55. We have 5 minutes.
Can we do a refactor in 5 minutes?
Sure. No.
Are we?
No, because we're going to write a spec for the helper. So but we can make some progress.
How do you feel about writing the spec and then we can end this on a failing spec?
Sure. That sounds great. I love ending on a failing spec. Because it gives you a really good idea of where you left off, and you're not going to forget because you're not going to have the. So what we want here is we want a helper that we already have a helper that basically does this, but it only works with active slugs. It's meant to work with arrays of slugs and do the model lookup. So what we want is a fairly generic, like we already have filter array present. So we probably want a like filter array description, filter array details.
So the filter array present returns a Boolean.
That's
right?
what I mean. I'm just saying we're already establishing a naming here of filter array present. So we could do like filter array details because we have filter details for what the helper should be named.
What does filter details do?
Filter details is the one that works on a collection of model slugs and loops through them, rejects blanks, loops through them all. If it can look up and link to each one, it does.
Or we'll try to link to them.
Yeah. Well, another option is to change this method to be able to handle the case where it's actually not a model at all.
Oh, so basically if it's not a model, instead of linking, just putting regular text.
Mm-hmm. I actually like that idea.
Yeah.
Because there's been a number of times where someone didn't know that that's what that was for. And so they used it and then it breaks because they're just giving it a normal array.
I like that idea.
Okay.
So then we could work within that context when we give it a
oh, there's not a spec for that.
Oh,
there's a spec
right.
for this other method that builds on top of that does something similar built on top of it, but there's not a spec for that underlying method. Great. Let's add that coverage because it's a complex method now. I think it's one of those things, those helpers that grew over time. It's probably started off super simple and never had a spec written for it.
Well, at the very least, we can add a spec that covers the behavior that we're adding. And maybe if we want a one for the with active record.
Yeah. The capitalized array of filters with blanks rejected as a sentence. Let's see if it fills it out. It's sort of fun to like write a detailed spec description and see whether it can do it. It looks pretty good to me. What it's doing is doing the slug version though.
Right. And we want just strings.
So, but this is basically what we want to do. Might as well just do to do working. And then.
Yep.
And then. So then what we should get is to do or working.
Mm-hmm.
That is going to fail horribly because it's going to try to initialize a it's going to try to constantize a status model,
Right.
which doesn't exist.
All right. Well, we've got our failing spec.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
Awesome.
a good place to end the stream.
No problem, Dyson returns. Thank you for joining right at the last minute. The whole thing is recorded and available online on Twitch for a while, and then always on YouTube. Well, we thank everybody for coming and working with us today.
Yeah, you got to see us make some mistakes, fix some bugs, do some testing. This was fun.
And we ended in a pretty good spot, I think. We really got in over the course of the 3 hours yesterday, the 3 hours today, pretty much everything that I wanted to do done. We've just got that to refactor that helper. And then we do need to change the page to persist this filter block on TurboLink's reloads.
Right.
Because otherwise it's really annoying to use. Awesome. Thanks so much, Joel. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on the stream.
And once again, if you want some help with your Rails app or creating a mobile app or lots of different things, you can check us out at thoughtbot.com. And you can check out Joel on the Bike Shed podcast, which is our development-focused podcast at bikeshed.fm. Thanks, everybody. Oh, Kevin, yes. The other pages use turbo frames, and we will convert this page to use turbo frames.